The overnight flight to Paris had just begun. The plane sliced through the dark sky, leaving the city behind as the lights below flickered like tiny stars. In first class, where luxury and exclusivity reigned, Nathan Carter occupied one of the most privileged seats. Nathan was no ordinary passenger. Dressed in a flawless suit with a high-end watch on his wrist, he exuded power and mystery. His gaze was sharp, always observant, but that night, he was particularly interested in only one thing: the flight attendant who had just walked past. Sophia Reynolds, tall, slender, and with a professional smile that hid secrets, had noticed Nathan even before the plane took off. Men like him were used to getting everything they wanted, but there was something different about him, something that sent shivers down her spine. Their eyes met when she handed a glass of whiskey to another passenger. He held her gaze for too long. Sophia looked away, trying to ignore the heat rising up her skin. But as she returned to the service cabin, she could still feel a pair of eyes on her. Nathan was playing a dangerous game. And she was willing to play too. The in-flight service proceeded as usual, but every time Sophia passed by seat 2A, the tension between them grew. It was as if an invisible thread pulled them toward each other. "I need more ice." Nathan's deep voice sounded as she stopped beside him. She raised an eyebrow, noticing his glass was still nearly full. "I think you can handle it a little longer, sir." Her voice was soft, but teasing. He smirked, leaning in. "What else can I handle, Sophia?" Her name on his lips did something to her. She didn't respond. She simply took a step back, holding on to the last thread of control. But Nathan wasn't one to give up easily. When the flight shifted into nighttime mode, with dimmed lights and most passengers asleep, Sophia felt her entire body on high alert. What did she expect? That he would give up? Of course not. And then, when she went to the service cabin, he appeared. Leaning casually against the wall, effortless, but lethally seductive. "Need help with something?" he asked, his voice low enough to be a caress in the silent plane. She turned slowly to face him. "You know you're not supposed to be here." Nathan took a step forward, closing the distance between them. "What if I told you I can't help it?" The air between them thickened, charged with something forbidden. And then, he touched her. His fingertips brushed lightly against her waist. Sophia should have stepped back. She should have reminded herself of her job, the rules. But instead, she leaned in. Nathan pressed her against the small counter, his warm breath mixing with hers. "Do you feel that?" he murmured, his mouth almost touching hers. She nodded, her heart hammering in her chest. And then, he kissed her. It was a collision of pure desire. Their lips met with a hunger long restrained, a game of teasing finally erupting. His hand slid down her back, pulling her closer. Sophia tangled her fingers in his hair, deepening the kiss. The service cabin had never felt so hot. Nathan trailed his lips down her neck, lightly nipping at her sensitive skin, making her sigh. "Tell me to stop," he whispered against her skin. But she didn't. She grabbed his tie, pulling him back to her mouth as if to say, "Don't stop." Minutes blurred. The plane was full of people, but there, in that narrow space, it felt like they were the only two in the world. When he lifted her onto the counter, her legs instinctively wrapped around his waist. Nathan's hands traced the curve of her thighs, pressing himself against her. "You drive me crazy, Sophia," he admitted, biting her lower lip. She smiled against his mouth. "Maybe you need more self-control, Mr. Carter." He let out a low chuckle, his voice husky with desire. "Or maybe I just need more of you." And then, with one last urgent kiss, he stepped back. "This isn't over."